Well, also while you were away in your wedding in Ireland, and I hope you had a great time, I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
Junior fought down in Christchurch. You've talked to Doug, obviously, and
Yeah.
did you manage to see that, or you had to wait till you go?
No, we got a live feed of that while we were in Ireland as well. We were on the ball with everything. Yeah, so we got a live feed of Junior's fight, and what can you say about that fight? We chose to we chose the right opponent that we fought for where Junior was, and where Junior was in a funny sort of a place. It was coming off a very off a sickness, basically. Yeah, a problem with his blood and his red blood cell count and the amount of oxygen going to his blood, and we were rebuilding from that. So we thought it was the right opponent, had pretty good credentials, not the best credentials, like I'll be honest, but good enough test for Junior, we fought. And he came through that test like with flying colours. Let me say this, you know, like the Junior got a little bit of criticism about that opponent, mainly coming from Mr. Kevin Barry. But let me tell you, one of the best fights of that night would have been Junior's opponent and Joseph's opponent. And if you look at the rankings, Junior's opponent and Joseph's opponent were only like a few places ahead of each other. Yeah. So I'm not sure where this criticism from Mr. Kevin Barry comes from.
It was pretty much like calling the kettle the
well,
100%.
Very strange criticism, and it's good to see. Like, it's a funny old thing. Like, Kevin Barry has been put in this position, this privileged position that I personally think he shouldn't be in. But he's been put in this position, and as Joseph Parker has got more and more successful, he's gotten more and more brave. And you've got to remember, we're dealing with a new generation of New Zealand boxing fans and stuff, and they don't perhaps remember what's happened, all of the boxing history to do with New Zealand, especially obviously what happened with Mr. Kevin Barry and Mr. Martin Pugh and Mr. David Tua. But I'm old enough to remember that, and you're old enough to remember that, and in my opinion, Mr. Barry should hold the pads for the camera, and other than that, be very, very quiet in a country where it's a privilege for him to be in, with a fighter who it's a privilege to be with, a Samoan fighter at that, for that matter. He should be very, very quiet. This is a person that had to move his entire life and go and teach people box fit in a garage in Las Vegas, because what he did was very frowned upon in his own country. And I mean, for sure, I'm a big believer in everybody makes mistakes, and you should be given a chance after your mistake. But let's not get too cocky about our position. Let's remember some things here, and let me just go on the record and I don't know if Kevin Barry will ever watch this, but just be a little bit careful, my friend. Yeah.
Junior, do you think Junior and Joseph will meet each other in the future?
I think Junior and Joseph Parker will definitely meet, but like, we've been very honest about our position. We want the fight to fester a little bit more, get a little bit more interest, and let me also say that it's not going to do Junior any harm to get a bit more experience as well. In all honesty, Joseph Parker has had experience that we just don't have. He's fought some of the highest caliber opposition for world titles. He's had a world title that we don't have. Strategically, it makes perfect sense for Mr. David Higgins and Kevin Barry to fight Junior now, because Junior hasn't had the same experiences. Now Junior would be the best time to fight him now, before he gains that experience. But for us, our position is, let's let the fight build more interest. It builds, it becomes worth more for the fighters, and from a coaching point of view, it gives Junior the chance to just get a little bit more valuable experience that he needs to fight someone of such a high caliber who's been to the top of the world like Joseph.
Junior went overseas and did the sparring. Excuse me. Is that going to be an ongoing thing? Do you think he'll go back when Deontay gets another fight?
Well, I tell you what, it was a draw, so there's a high likelihood that he's going to have a rematch, and they went out of their way to tell me how impressed they were with Junior, and they went out of their way to tell me that Junior can be an elite level at the highest level heavyweight. They went out of my way to tell that. So there's a very high chance that he will be a part of Deontay's camp for now and throughout the foreseeable future. But obviously if Deontay stays where he is and our guy keeps climbing, there'll be at some point they will have to break away. That's just the sport.
Everything's on the up and up.
Everything's on the up and up for Junior. Onwards and upwards, more fights next year, tougher and tougher opposition, and then, like you said, there's some big things happening for Junior next year. I don't want to steal Mark Cadell's thunder. That's all his stuff, and I actually don't know a lot of the details about it, so I won't talk about that. But